So there we are. And so the recording to this session will be on YouTube, and I will send everybody who registered a link so that you can access it later. There are quite a few people who reached out and said, I can't make it, please send the recording. And so of course that will happen. So I still am a dementia educator. And for 3 years, I worked in long-term care where I was teaching new hires the Washington state mandated curriculum about dementia and mental health. And that curriculum included a section about validation. And basically, it was just a brief little intro, but we got to watch a video of Vicki de Klerk's mother, Naomi Feil, who is the founder of validation theory. We got to watch her connecting with a woman named Gladys Wilson. And the first time I saw that video, I thought, who is this person? And so I started researching her and researching her work. And I really do believe that the work that Vicki and her mom and everybody at the Validation Training Institute do is foundational for anybody who is a caregiver. And so when Vicki agreed to to join us today, I instantly reached out to the rest of my team and I said, she said yes. We were just so excited. And so thank you to all of you. You are so lucky to be here today. Vicki is going to chat. She'll do a little bit of an introduction, and then she'll chat a bit about her work and about what is validation theory. And I welcome you, as the conversation is happening, to go ahead and type things into the chat, questions that you have. And when it's the Q&A time, we'll start at the top and work our way through those questions. And so to make sure we have as much time as possible for the meat and potatoes, let's just go ahead and get started. Everybody, please welcome Vicki de Klerk.
Thank you, Allison. You're very kind. I'm Vicki de Klerk Rubin. My mom was Naomi Feil, and back in the 1960s, she worked as a social worker in the nursing home, and back then it was called a nursing home, where she had grown up as a little girl because she came over from Munich, Germany, as a 4-year-old, and her dad got a job at this very large, the Montefiore home, which no longer exists, unfortunately. And so she, as a 4-year-old, grew up living in the home with the older adults. And that truly informed her whole approach to looking at and communicating with older adults who are living with cognitive decline. So fast forward, she grew up, she became a social worker, and she ended up going back to Cleveland, Ohio, and working in this home where she had a lot of freedom to experiment. And being the creative and extremely intelligent woman that she was, she pulled things from all sorts of sources and tried it out with the older adults who were then called senile psychotic. We don't use those terms anymore. Some people say demented. My mother was against that word because it means away from mind. And she always said, these people are not away from mind. They're in their personal reality. And that was her vision. And when you start from that vision, many things become reframed or clearer. She experimented, and in 1982, she published her first book, The Validation, the File Method. She also, at that time, grounded the Validation Training Institute, where she headed that up until 2014, when I took the leadership role. So what the Validation Training Institute does is promote the validation method all over the world. And we have over 900 certified validation teachers in 30 training centers in 14 countries. So it's out there. And what I think is important for you, caregivers, direct caregivers, to understand about validation is what it is and what it isn't. It is not a magic wand. Boing, everything's easy. In one sentence, the validation method is a way of connecting and communicating with people who live in their own reality, people who have cognitive decline, and they can be verbal or they can be nonverbal. That Gladys video that Allison referred to, you can see it on YouTube. It's a stunning video. Gladys is basically nonverbal. And so you can see that the validation method works with that population as well. Some of the key principles of validation are: every human being is unique and worthwhile. And it doesn't matter if you're oriented or disoriented. We treat every human being with respect, with honor, and in the validation method, we use empathy. That's how we can connect, even without words. We connect through emotion and through basic human needs. And those things generally clarify all the behaviors that oriented people find difficult or challenging or not understandable. But if you look at it through the lens of, what is this person trying to communicate to me? What is the need behind the behavior? It's another validation principle. We also in validation invite strong emotion, because one of the principles is that painful emotions, when expressed to another human being, they lessen. But when you try to push it down, it becomes sort of festering over time. And you all know that. You've experienced that in your life. When you've been really angry about something and somebody said to you, oh, you don't have to be angry. You know that feeling, what just happens? You go, some people get angrier and other people just shut down. The anger doesn't go away. So many of these old people have had that anger in them for 50 years. And one of the things that happens as people lose cognition is emotions flow freer. And so those bottled up emotions often sort of spring out like a champagne cork. My mom saw that these people who are very old, who are not diagnosed with another illness like Parkinson's or vascular dementia or what else? There's lots of different Lewy bodies, dementia, early onset What my mom saw is that these very old people, 80 plus around, they don't have a disease. What they have is Alzheimer's. They're just very old. They've lost a lot of brain cells because we lose brain cells as we get older. That is normal. My brain is much smaller and lighter than the brain of a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old. That's just biology. Like my hair is white. I used to have black hair. I'm older. My skin is saggy. I'm older. And so how we deal with these changes, and some people experience them as losses, short-term memory. You know, the fact that I can't remember certain things, that feels like a real loss to me sometimes. The fact that I can't walk well because I have arthrosis, that's a real loss to me. Dealing with those losses now while we can is critically important for our healthy aging. The older adults who we call, I would prefer to say disoriented older adults rather than use the word dementia. A lot of them have not accepted the losses that come with aging. And so they're fighting it. They haven't been able to accept certain losses in society, that they are not seen as useful or productive anymore, and that can be very difficult. I sort of circled around and now I'm back to basic human needs. And a basic human need is to express emotion, right? To somebody who will listen. My mom saw this final stage of life, which she called the resolution stage of life, where people are trying to resolve old unfinished business before they die. It's a struggle to die in peace. So instead of seeing somebody old and drooling and useless, she saw older people as busy in a struggle to find peace at the end of their life. And in this resolution stage of life, there are 4 phases. The first phase is when people are aware of the here and now, but are unhappily oriented to the here and now. Those are often people who will say, you know, there's a drip coming from the ceiling and it's on my bed every night. My bed is soaking wet. So that's not really real, but they can't accept that they've become incontinent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe.
If that person is constantly told, oh no, it's not true, you're wrong, everything's fine, you're just incontinent, here are these Pampers, that woman has some choices. She can either get more and more angry, or she can shut down. And if she starts to shut down, she's pulling in, and she can move into the second phase, which is where she's in her own inner world. And these are the people who say, I have to go home now. You know, my children are waiting for me. And I always have to be there for them when they get home from school. They're in their own reality. This is a woman who never really accepted that her kids grew up and she was no longer the mother And that was her identity. Is that clear? So if this woman is told, is not accepted, is told that her reality is wrong, is told to be quiet or given medication to quiet her down, she can either fight it or she can pull in and withdraw. And that's where you move into the third phase, where they don't talk anymore. They no longer communicate their needs and feelings with words. So what you'll see is somebody pounding or rocking. That lady who wanted to be a mother and go home to her kids, if she moves into phase 3, she could just sit and rock back and forth or hold a doll. That's an expression of her need. And if those people are not given space to express themselves or medicated, they will move into the fourth and final phase, which is just cutting off from everything. No longer communicating physically or verbally. And one of the big goals in validation is to prevent that. We want to keep people communicating until the last day. So those are the phases and the resolution stage of life. I'm giving you the condensed version of the validation method. There's a bunch of verbal techniques, and by that, techniques that are used with people who are verbal. And there are a bunch of techniques for people who express themselves non-verbally. And now I think I'm open to questions. I've given you the bare bones.
I'm happy to jump in with a question because I've got about 6. So I will start with one. Thank you so much for expressing those 4 levels, which is something that I had not really that I hadn't really understood. And so would we consider then that if somebody is aware of the here and now, but sort of unhappily oriented, the drips are coming out, that if we say to them, if we try to reorient them and say, no, no, your reality is wrong, there's no drip, you're just wetting your bed, that if we keep pushing back that way, that we kind of push them towards step 2, right? And so can you give an example then, Vicki, of what I would say to the person instead? Because now I've got this person who is getting really pissed at me because I haven't fixed the ceiling. And how do I resolve that?
I start exploring. I use open questions and rephrasing primarily to connect and say, oh my God, your bed is wet every night? Is there ever a night when it's not? So I'm not saying, yes, it is, no, it's not. I'm just trying to explore. And when did this begin? And forget about the ceiling. It's all about just exploring the reality.
What would be an example of a successful outcome there?
That I build trust with the person, that at the end of the conversation, they say, which will last maybe 5 minutes. This does not take long. I just want to let you know that they say, thank you for listening. And I say, it was my pleasure. And if it's realistic, I would say, let me come back and talk to you again.
And if so is the hope that at the end of that they would come to the conclusion themselves that the issue is not the ceiling, or is that just not even part of it?
It's not part of it.
It's
It's not about the ceiling, and it's not about the incontinence. That particular scenario is about somebody who is desperately afraid of losing control of herself, control over her body. If she's living in a long-term care facility, losing control of her choices. And if she's somebody who wants a lot of control and can't accept the losses, she's going to try to, you see a lot of blaming. You know, my roommate stole my good underwear, or you stole my pearls, or that's very typical behavior of people in this challenging phase, challenging for the individual and super challenging for the people around the caregivers. Because you want to say, no, I didn't take anything, or no, the ceiling's fine, you know, but that does not help what's underneath the behavior, which is a desperate fear of loss.
Vicki, Kay asked a question. I like Lee's comment.
Nice.
Quickly looking through. I like Lee's comment about, yes, being curious, not furious. And Kay asks, Kay, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Thanks. I understand the validation part of it to take away the whole ceiling thing, but is there also a way to help them understand the need for the Pampers or the things like that to help with the incontinence so that they can begin to accept that and not to have it come up with the ceiling every single day? Because that's otherwise that's a very likely scenario also.
Well, I think if you try to force reality, you're missing the issue. I can imagine in that situation asking the person, what do you think would help? You know, what would help you get more control?
Fix the ceiling.
Maybe,
I
and
mean, that's
then you'd say, okay, that's one idea. What else? Because, and here's another important validation principle. It's a little bizarre, but it's based on science. Every human being lives on different levels of consciousness at the same time. Okay? So this person who's blaming the ceiling, somewhere in the back of their head, they know they're incontinent. They know it. But they cannot accept it, so they push it away. So I think the best way to handle that particular scenario is just with a lot of patience, putting a pad underneath the sheet and talking with them every day, not about the ceiling, but about what it's like to get older and losing everything, and hair and eyes and what else is going wrong right now. And let them blah it out.
Right. So sort of
Because somewhere they know.
accepting,
Trust.
normalizing, and trusting you. Make a note together, Barbara says, make a note together to ask the custodian to fix the leak. How do you feel about that?
Nah. Because basically deep down, the person knows there's no leak. So writing the letter is sort of like play acting. I would not do that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Deborah, I just want to acknowledge the suggestion that you made about, I know in that we tend to use the word briefs rather than diapers because it is less pushback if it seems like a normal part of the clothing. And I really, really appreciate that reminder.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if anybody has another specific type of issue that you're curious about, how it would be managed through a validation approach.
Mm.
Or any other question. How many people here have heard of validation before today? Put a hand up. Oh, awesome. By the way, down at the bottom, you can see reactions. And you can do hand gestures or,
Yes.
and I welcome those responses.
Vicki, I have a question for you, if I
Sure.
may. Years ago, I was doing it was when I was just kind of starting down this road. Did we just lose Vicki?
I'm
Oh,
here.
there you are. There you are. You popped into a different spot on my screen. Well, you know what?
Oh,
Actually, let me defer to Linda first, and then we'll come back to my question if there's time. Linda, please go ahead, unmute and ask your question.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
hi,
Hope you can
Linda.
hear me.
We do.
This validation, um, it makes sense. And I'm I am taking care of my companion, okay, and he's been diagnosed with first stage dementia.
Mhm.
But and I feel so guilty sometimes because I end up in arguing. So that's why I joined this group, is because I need to know how to help him. And we've been together for 10 years, and he's just been diagnosed for the past 2 years of our 10 years being together. But here lately, mm, it's been a little bit argumented, but the videos have been helping me. The coming to the sessions have been helping me. But the validation is, I'm trying to wrap my head around that today. Um, my situation is this person has been independent all their life, and they're 70, just turned 73 last week. But money seems to be a problem. We seem to have bump heads when it comes down to money. Um, Credit cards is down to one card now, and I keep having to validate that we only have one card now. And I'm understanding Vicki from what she's saying, that you gotta look at it at another approach, at another way. Where is this coming from? What is them now? I'm taking care of all the bills, everything is paid, we have lights on, we have a place to stay, we have food to eat. But this person my companion seems to want to know, where is everything? It's like it's a money issue, It's so I'm looking
Okay.
at what Vicky's saying today as validation. Is I understand now that this person has always taken care of themselves, have never had to depend on someone else. But I don't want to continue to have arguments behind a money situation. Am I making sense? Is
Sort of.
anybody understanding?
First of all, I want to tell you that the validation method was not developed for people as young as your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Uh, my my guess is it's either early onset Alzheimer, vascular dementia, or Lewy body dementia. Because those illnesses begin earlier
Right.
in life. So there are certain aspects of validation that are going to work well for you and others will not. If somebody has early onset Alzheimer, what will happen is their verbal ability tends to go in the first, 10 years. With the medications, it's really extended it quite a bit. Used to be 3 to 5 years. Now 10 or more, which is quite remarkable. And you can have moments of real outbursts, emotional outbursts and hitting. And that's why knowing exactly what the diagnosis is important. First or second stage dementia isn't really a diagnosis. So I would strongly recommend finding out so you know what to expect. Every illness has got a different flow. I don't know what else, another word to use. And I want you to know what you can expect. And I would find that really important.
That's
So
where,
that's
why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
She said that's what
I
why
said
she's
that,
here to learn this stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
I want to,
I'm here.
oh, sorry, Linda. I want to just add a couple of quick things and then I want to move on to some more questions. Yes, because of the fact that the different diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's or Lewy body or vascular dementia, are all dementias, but they are different diseases. And so they affect different parts of the brain. And so the parts of the brain that are affected is predictive of how the person is going to respond to the world as the disease progresses. I think that the importance when somebody they've been in charge of everything all their lives. They've been doing the finances, they've been doing the gardening, they haven't needed anybody to tell them what to do. The imperative that we keep finding ways, making sure that we look at what they can do rather than what they can't do, making sure that we support them still being able to do some of the things that create a sense of identity for them, and reminding them that they're needed. I can't imagine what I would do if you weren't here. My God, thank God you're still here to help me with whatever it is. And maybe they can't redo all the electrical stuff in the house, but they might be able to change a light bulb. And so I might actually ask them to change a light bulb that maybe doesn't really even need to be changed, but I'm giving them something to do that supports their importance in our household. Vicki?
Thank you.
That certainly speaks to the person to finding activity for them. In validation, we would just want to talk to them and let them express their need and their feeling to explore it. So it's the two things really go very well together. So if you use validation to explore and allow the person to express and recognize the need and try to support them in fulfilling it, that's 100% right there.
Yes,
Thank you so
validation
much.
helps you refine the need, and
Thank
then
you.
you respond to what that need is based on what you learned through validation. I love that. Lisa, let's jump
I
over to
love
you.
Okay. That question and both of your answers actually really helped me with something. I've actually worked with people who have dementia for about 15 years. But I will say what was a game changer for me personally, not for everybody else. I started taking improv classes 5 years ago, and the basis of improv is yes and. My license plate actually says yes and. So I'll give you an example. I had a lady who had Lewy body dementia. I was in her bedroom with her. She was watching something on TV, and she looked over at me. She goes, "Will you tell those little boys to be quiet? They're just too loud." So I could tell her, There's nobody in here, sweetheart." But that's not remotely what you do. You just say, "Oh my gosh, yes, they're bothering me too. Let me go grab them. David, Chris, you all come here. I'm going to take them out in the hallway. We're going to go watch TV. I'm going to set them up with a TV down in the living room." So she said, "Okay." And then we did that. And I did that. And then I shut the door to her bedroom, and she goes, "Oh, so much better now." So I agreed with what was going on, but then I acted on it. And so the validation isn't quite the acting part. Is that right, Vicki? No? Okay.
We would never, ever do that because
Okay.
that's play acting. And it's a lie. Sorry. Some people would call it a therapeutic lie.
Right.
And
That's what
my
the
mom,
Alzheimer's Association says.
it's terrible. It's just terrible.
That is
I'm
so interesting.
Uh-huh. Remember that principle that they really do know what's going on. She knows it. Well, Lewy body dementia, things can be a little bit different. And remember, I'm speaking about old people. They know what's going on. And when we pretend or lie, we break trust. And we're trying to build trust. That's important. So one of the things my mom used to say, and she said it in her last recording, she said, I asked her, what would you like for the future? What are your wishes? And she said that the word dementia would get thrown out. Out. She was very emphatic. And she also would say, I wish people would stop lying. Because she said, I don't know what's therapeutic about lying.
Yeah. It's an,
Right?
and
Sorry, I came across, sorry, Lisa, I apologize for coming across so strongly.
Oh, no, I understand. And this is definitely going to be an area where we just disagree. On now, you're talking about the validation method, and so my
Oh,
method was a little bit different. That's all. And I'm glad that
absolutely.
there's several different types because we all need help.
yes, absolutely. And so to be able to, and this is why I'm so glad that we have Vicki here today, is to be able to understand what validation is about. You may find that there are parts of validation that really align with your caregiving, and maybe you have other things that work for you. At the end of the day, I think that we have to do what works best for ourselves and the person that we support. But we have to understand what tools are out there and understand why they work. Yeah, Vicki.
And whose need is being addressed? I'd like to throw that in the mix.
Yeah.
If my need is to get a person calmed down, that's my need. If it's my need to get the person to wear briefs, that's my need. If it's about going to bed at nighttime and waking up in the morning or getting dressed or taking a shower and the person is resisting, remember, those are all our needs because we think we know what's best for them or what's easy for me, or I just have had enough, or whatever our need is, and our needs are also valid. But it's important to recognize if my need as caregiver is different from the need of the care receiver. And I'm not saying you have to always choose the older person's need. There are times when your need comes first, but make it an active choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Vicki. Deborah, what
Yeah.
about you? Oh, you're muted.
I love this. And Allison, I'm just telling you, we just got Zinnia TV at Thrive and we love it. So a couple of things. I love what you're saying, Vicki. It's sort of the validation lying thing. And I don't really call it lying, but you're talking about being in their truth. Can I give you an example? I have a woman who's, I don't know, 92. She has schizophrenia and dementia. So that's an extra, go ahead.
When was the schizophrenia diagnosed?
Long time ago. She's had it for years. So it's part of her makeup. So
When she was a young woman?
I think so.
Okay.
I've known her for 3 years. So yesterday was her birthday. And often in the afternoons, she yells out and screams a lot. She gets disoriented and we support her, whatever she needs to talk about. So yesterday she was really, really upset because we didn't realize that 2 out of her 5 children had died in the month of September. So validating her feelings, she was crushed. And so validating her feelings that I know this is very painful. I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's validating, correct? I'm validating her feelings, right? That her story is true. It's her truth. Sometimes with my residents, and I have 6 residents, I don't even know what type of dementia they have, they will say an untruth. Like, let me think of an example right now. When is my husband coming to pick me up?
Right.
So and this is just me, I don't want to go against what you're thinking. Am I going to say, no, your husband died and he's not coming to pick you up? Or your husband, tell me about your husband.
Interesting. I recognize that situation from my own practical clinical experience. The question is it about the husband or is it about getting out?
She may mean her son. Sometimes they say
Maybe.
it could be their son, it could be their daughter, it could be their mom.
No, I'm trying to dig okay, you be the lady.
Okay.
And I'll try to validate.
Okay.
And we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Okay, so you say,
I'm wondering, is my husband coming to pick me up today?
when do you expect him?
Dinner time.
Okay. Did he always pick you up at dinner time?
After work sometimes.
What's the nicest thing about him picking you up?
He brings me a milkshake.
Really? Fantastic.
Okay.
How long, and then how long? Now I'm getting, it's about missing her husband.
Right.
And it's not about, I got to get out of here because I hate where I am, which, if she had answered, I got to get out of this place and my husband's, I'm not really living here. Then it's more about, then my questioning would go more in that direction.
In that
I'm
instance,
just exploring.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're going to a deeper level than I am, because for me, I'm just saying, I'm validating what you're saying at this moment in your life, in your world. I understand.
Explore.
Okay, I get that. And
Yeah.
again, somebody noticed so 2 things I also want to say. We want to give them a purpose.
You cannot give them a purpose.
Is
They
making
choose it.
a purpose? Like if
The
I
thing is, how do you give somebody a purpose? That's saying, I want you to be happy.
maybe purpose isn't the right word, but a choice.
Activity. We can offer activities that speak to their purpose and speak to their truth about who they are. I can find things that might be really appeal to them and engage them on a higher level because it's part of their purpose and part of how they perceive themselves.
Can we, wait a minute, there's an abundance of use of the word purpose. And I think it gets pulled in, perhaps we're not all talking about the same thing. Can we use basic human needs? When we talk about basic human needs, we're talking about the need to be useful, the need to be loved, and also to feel a part of a whole. Now, not everybody has all these needs strongly. Some people really need to belong, others really need to feel useful. So it's individual. The need to make sense out of reality, to find equilibrium, the need to, what else? To resolve unfinished issues. The need to express emotion that's painful. These are all basic human needs. And if we can suss out what the person is needing, and sometimes we can just ask them, what do you need right now? What would make your life better right now? That can be a useful question. In validation, we use a lot of open questions. Who, what, where, when, how. We do not use the question why, because why requires cognition. And generally, the why question comes from our curiosity. Okay? So it's less exploratory. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's awesome. It takes me to a different level. I got to go do some homework now.
Cool.
I love that. And I think we might have maybe time for 2 more questions. There's Allie had asked something in the chat. Allie, do you want to unmute and open a conversation?
I typed it because I was somewhere where I couldn't say anything out loud, but I've shifted my space. So this has been really helpful, and I'm not sure that so my mom is at a place where she often repeats the same questions or the same statements. So for example, have a doctor's appointment, 2:00 in the afternoon. She's aware of that. It's on the calendar. She repeats, when is the doctor? Why am I going to the doctor? When is the doctor? Why am I going to the doctor? The day of, it turns into, I'm too tired, I can't go. And I've tried to explore that with her in the sense of, what might be helpful. We have, 3 hours before we have to leave. Would you like something to eat? Would you like to, have a little nap before you go? And
Allie, let me interrupt you for just a second.
yes.
I would ask her, what is the worst thing that can happen at the doctor's? What worries you the most?
Okay.
Because everything you're describing says to me fear.
Okay.
And if you start exploring her fear, like when the appointment's made and she starts bringing this up over and over, people repeat things that are important to them. They repeat things that haven't found resolution yet or expression. So she may not be able to get to in her head, I'm scared of going to the doctor because he may tell me something terrible. I don't know. But until she can say what's going on, it's going to keep coming back.
Right.
Okay.
And I guess I'm thinking that might also be related then, like for social things. Like I mentioned, my brother was hosting for her birthday, and that also became, why do we need to go there? I'm tired, I have a headache. And I've always seen the I'm tired or I have a headache as that sort of, I physically am not able to go, therefore don't make me go. But that fear of, because she's she has an awareness of memory loss. She has a fear of falling that
Yes.
when she goes to do things, it takes a lot of her energy. It takes a lot of her mental capacity to be able to follow through on the basics of even just putting her coat on now. So the fear piece, I had not thought of that because she's never expressed it that way. Yeah. Okay.
Another thing to think about, especially in social situations, if I'm making this up, I don't know your mom. There are certain people who will not go out unless they feel they are looking like their old selves. They don't want to go out looking like a very old person, an old sick person. And so the effort it takes to put up the facade is exhausting. And it may
Yeah.
require a trip to get your nails done or your hair done or get the clothes out. For some people, that sort of how you look to others can be extremely important.
Yeah, and I would say for my mom, there's a little bit of that. I'm thinking it's a lot of she's always been fiercely independent, and she would make comments like, I'm very capable. And when we have gone out socially, people sometimes try and help her up out of her chair, or they're like, I'll go get you this glass of water. And she's like, I can do it myself. So I
Yep.
think there might be a bit of she
Yep.
definitely wants to present well. She wants to look well. She
Yeah.
always likes to get her hair done before she goes out. But I'm wondering if it's that fear of how does she respond to somebody if they're trying to help her, but she doesn't want the help. And even though I've communicated to other people, let her ask for it because she's in a phase where she can ask for it. Don't, unless she's really like it's the third attempt out of the chair, but
that
yeah.
happens to me all the time. And it can make you very grouchy when people start treating you like you can't do anything. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Allie. That was really
Thank
terrific.
you for that. I think I'm going to try and see how I could get her maybe to expand beyond I'm tired, because normally it's just I'm tired when I try to explore more, she's just I'm tired.
Let me
Yeah.
give you another validation principle, and I should have given it to you at the top. We have to accept the older adult as they are, and we cannot change them.
Yes.
We can't change them. It's just how it is. And that's tough for the caregiver.
Barbara, sorry, Vicki. I think we might have time for one last question. And Barbara, I wondered if I did respond to Tony and Jenna. I sent you a chat. And Barb, if you would like to ask your question, please.
It just seems to me that the validation process sounds wonderful. And I'm not sure there's always the time for the whole process, but it seems to me we might have to do it over and over every time we are together, because it might finally come out that they're afraid of going to the doctors, but that's not going to be remembered the next time we talk to them.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. And it may come back because the fear of going to the doctor may always be there. But once you discover it, you can get to the heart of the issue quickly. When I validate somebody, it often does not last more than 2-3 minutes. Okay? We're not talking about a long process. In the beginning, as you're learning, it can take some more time. I did want to show you. I wrote a book for families, and while I have it in German in front of me, I don't have the English. I have it in Japanese, but not the English.
What is the title, Vicki, so I can pop it into the chat?
The English title is Validation Techniques for Dementia Care.
Oh, good.
And it's from Health Professions Press. And
Okay.
it's not all a validation, but it'll walk you through all the principles and the techniques that can help you.
That is fabulous. And I will also do a plug and let you guys know that we have partnered with Vicki and Validation Training Institute, so that there are a number of their videos are on Zinnia. So it's not in the section where all the channels are. It's the other section where it's got playlists and caregiver support, caregiver education videos. There's a whole section there that's just validation. My favorites, Vicki, are the ones where you're doing sort of back, like play acting, where you're going back and forth and talk and problem solving. I found those to be so incredibly instructive. So I do invite people to go and look at those. And those are free. You can copy the link once you go there, copy the link and send it to your friends. Anybody can go and look at those.
On our YouTube channel, which is, I'll put it also, Validation Training Institute on YouTube. We have about 60 different videos. A lot of them are on Zinnia, and I strongly recommend that you go to that channel. But there's like a whole thing, caregiver self-care, you can find there as well.
Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our time together. Vicki, I'm so grateful. I learned new things today. And I love that people shared questions. People shared different things that work for them. And I'm really happy that we can keep that kind of open dialogue going without judgment. We figure out what works for us, and having validation is something that we can lean into and practice and learn. I love that. So for those of you who had not heard about it before today, I do encourage you, get Vicki's book, look at videos, give things a try. I think you might find some very, very interesting results. So
Or
thank you,
pick and
everybody.
choose. Thank you, everybody.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye.